Hi everybody, today we're going to be looking at finding percentages of amounts both with and without a calculator. You might want to pause the video and get yourself a pen and paper to take any notes, and then we'll get started. So by the end of the lesson we will have recapped simple division and multiplication, we will have calculated a percentage of an amount, and then we will have used this to decrease or increase an amount by a percentage, both with and without a calculator. Okay, so in order to calculate percentages of amounts, we need to be quite confident with our division and multiplication. So there are 5 progress questions and 5 challenge questions for you to have a go at here. Pause the video and in a couple of seconds I'll give you the answers. Answers. So on the left hand side, A is 25, B is 40, C is 120, D is 70, E is 120. On the right hand side, A is 15, B is 48, C is 72, D is 12.3 and E is 68. Well done if you got all of those right. If you want to go back and have a double check though, that would be great. So now, in order to calculate percentages of amounts, we need to know that they're out of 100. So if we know 100% of something, 50% is half of that because 50 goes into 100 twice. So to calculate 50%, we would half it or we would divide it by 2. Okay, 25% goes into 100 4 times. 25, 50, 75, 100. So to find 25% of an amount, we'd divide by 4, which is the same as dividing by 2 and then dividing by 2 again. So whichever method you prefer, they both give the same answer. 10% fits into 100 10 times. So to find what 10% of an amount is, you divide by 10. 5%, you divide by 10 and then you divide by 2. And then 1%, you divide by 100. So now we're going to have a look at an example. So we're going to find 50%, 25%, 10%, 5% and 1% of 160. So 50% we're going to divide by 2. So 160 divided by 2 is 80. 25%, we're either going to divide by 2 and then divide by 2, or we're going to divide by 4, which is what I've done. They both give you the same answer. 160 divided by 4. Think how many 4s go into 16. 4, 8, 12, 16, 4. So 4s into 16 go 4. So 4s into 160 go 40. 10% is divided by 10. So 160 divided by 10 is 16. 5%, remember from the slide before, we divide by 10 and then we divide by 2. So 160 divided by 10 is 16. And then the answer to that, we divide by 2, which is 8. So 5% of 160 is 8. And 1%, remember, we divide by 100. So 160 divided by 100 is 1.6. So now, it's your turn. Pause the video. Have a go at these, and then I'll give you the answers in a few seconds. Answers. So 50% we've divided by 2, so 20. 25% of 40 we've divided by 4 is 10. 10% we're going to divide by 10, so 40 divided by 10 is 4. 5% we're going to divide by 10 and then divide by 2, so that's 2. And then 1%, which is divided by 100, is 0.4. 240, 50% is 120, 25% is 60, 10% is 24, 5% is 12, and 1% is 2.4. And then 540, 50% is 270, 25% is 135, 10% is 54, 5% is 27, and 1% is 5.4. Well done if you got all of those correct. If you're not sure, look back at the rules that we've just looked at and see if you can correct any answers you've got. So if we look here, we've got our 240, which we had on the slide before. So 50% was 120 because we divide by 2. 25% was 60 because we've divided by 4. 10% is 24 because we've divided by 10. 5%, remember, divide by 10 to get 24, and then divide by 2 to get 12. And then 1%, you divide by 100, which is 2.4. What the question's actually asking us for, though, is 30%. So there's a couple of different ways of doing this, but the way I looked at it is, how can we make 30% out of these? So the way I found was to do 3 lots of 10%. Okay, so 1 lot's 24. So 3 lots is 24 times 3, which is 72. So 30% of 24 is 72. So now we've got the these percentages here again, just from the last slide. 45% of 240. So there are a couple of different ways of doing it, but again, the way I saw it was 4 lots of 10 and 1 lot of 5, because 40% would be 4 lots of 10, and then 1 lot of 5 would give us that 5%. So 4 lots of 10, 24 times 4, which is 96. And then 5% is 12. So then 45% is those added together, which is 108. You can use any method for multiplication you like here, so grid method or column method, whichever you prefer. Then we've got another one where we're finding 8%. So if we look here at what we've got, so we've got 5%, and then 6, 7, 8. So we want 3 lots of that and 1 lot of that added together. So it's 5% plus 3 lots of 1%. So our 5% we've got is 12, and our 3 lots of 1% is 3 lots of 2.4, which is 7.2. And remember, we've just looked at multiplying decimals, so use the methods that we've just learnt. And add those together is 19.2. So now there's a couple of questions for you to have a go at. So you might want to work out these first to help you, and then work out what combination of those you need to get to 20% or 80% or 65% or 87%. Okay, so pause the video, have a go, and I'll put the answers up in a second. Okay, so the answers. A is 14, B is 56, C is 117, D is 156.6, E is 3.6, and F is 15. Well done if you got all those correct. If you didn't, go back and check them. Make sure that you haven't made any division mistakes. And then we'll have a look at some more. So we're now going to look at a couple of real life examples. So now we've got a question where a shop's got a sale on. Let's work out the cost of each of the following items. So these sandals were £30 originally, and it's 20% off. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is work out 20%. So 10%, remember, you divide by 10, so that's 3. So 20% will be 2 lots of that 10%. So I've got 2 lots of the 10%, which is 3. So that's 6. And so because it's asking us for the cost of the items in the sale, that's how much they're reduced by. So we're going to have to take that 6 off to know the cost in the sale. So 30 take away 6 is £24. Then we've got our address that was originally £200, and there's 32% off. So we're going to need to think of combinations that help us out here. So if I find 10% by dividing by 10, that's going to help us to get to 30%, which gets us closest to 32. So then I've got my 20, which is my 10%, and I want 3 lots of it, so that's 60. Then to get to that 2%, I'm going to find 1%. So I'm going to do 200 divided by 100, because remember, dividing by 100 gets you 1%, which is 2. And then 2%, I'm going to multiply by 2 to get 2%, so that's 4. So 32% must be 30% plus 2%, which is 64. And it's £64 off. It's 32% off. So we need to take that off our £200, which is £132. So another example here, we've got some sunglasses that are 15% off. They were originally £130, so I'm going to find 10% of that because that's close. 10% is 130 divided by 10. So I've got 10%, that then leaves me with this extra 5% to find. So 5%, remember 130 divided by 10, which is 13, but 5% is half of that. So then I'm going to half it, I'm going to divide it by 2, which is 6.5. So 10% is 13 and 5% is 6.5. So all together, to get 15%, it's 19.5. So it's 19.5 or £19.50, because we're talking about money here, off. So 130 take away 19.5 is 110.5, which is £110.50. We've then got a slightly different question. So last year there were 20 students in a class. This year there are 30% more students. It's more. So think about what more means. More than means add on. So we're going to add on at the end. How many more students are in the class this year? So we've got 20 students in a class, 30% more students. So we're going to find 30% of 20. So 10%, we're going to divide by 10. And then 30%, we want 3 lots of it. So we're going to times it by 3, which is 6. And then because it's more than, we're going to add it on. So we've got our original number of students in the class plus 6, which is 26. So we've looked at some non-calculator versions. Now we're going to look at calculator versions. And we're going to use something called the multiplier method. So when we're finding 10% of something, when we weren't using a calculator, we divided by 10, and that's fine for questions where it's quite nice percentages. So if we think about dividing by 10, we'd expect the answer to be 5. So we're going to use the multiplier method to see if we get the same answer. So if we think about converting from a percentage to a decimal, we divide by 100. So to find 10% as a decimal, we divide by 100, which is 0.1. And then we've now made it into a multiplier. So I'm going to do 50 times 0.1, which is 5. So let's try another one. So 40%, first we're going to convert that to a decimal. So we're going to divide by 100. 40 divided by 100 is 0.4. Then we're going to multiply our amount by our multiplier, our decimal. 80 times 0.4, which is 32. Okay, so let's have a look at a couple more. So 12% of 50. So we're going to convert 12% to a decimal. So we're going to divide by 100. So 12 divided by 100 is 0.12. Then we're going to do 50 times by 0.12, which is 6. So it's 12% of 50 is 6. So then this one here, we're going to divide by 100 to get the multiplier. 4%, divide by 100, 0.04. Then, to find 4% of 80, we're going to multiply our 80 by 0.04. Sorry, 0.04, which is 3.2. So now, we've looked at just finding percentages of amounts using a multiplier. Now we're going to increase amounts by a percentage using a multiplier and decrease amounts using a multiplier. So what's 50% increased by 10%? So if you think about increasing, that means you're adding something on. So if we start at 100% and we add on 10%, that's 110%. And it's okay to have percentages that are bigger than 100. So now we've got our percentage, and we're going to divide that by 100 to get it as a multiplier. So we're going to do 110 divided by 100, which is 1.10. So exactly the same as what we've just done. And then to find what 50% is increased by 10%, we're going to use our multiplier. We're going to do 50 multiplied by 1.10, which is 55. So let's have a look at another one. So 80 decreased by 40%. So if you think about starting at 100% and you decrease by 40%, that gives you 60%. And again, we now need to convert that percentage into a multiplier. So 60 divided by 100 will give you 0.60. So that's our multiplier in this question. So our amount times by our multiplier. 80 multiplied by 0.60 or 0.6 is 48. So 50 increased by 12%. So we start off at 100%, and because we're increasing, we're going to add on our 12%. So 100 plus 12 is 112%. To get that to a multiplier, to a decimal, we're going to divide by 100, which is 1.12, and then we're going to multiply that by our amount, 50 times 1.12, which is 56. And then one more example, 80 decreased by 4%. So we're starting at 100%, and because we're decreasing, we're going to take that off. So 100 take away 4% is 96%. And remember, we want that as a decimal, so it can be used as a multiplier. So 96 divided by 100 is 0.96. And then we're going to do 80 multiplied by 0.96, which is 76.8. And remember, when you're timesing by a number less than 1, it makes it smaller. So, just a little bit of a recap. When finding percentages of an amount, you can use written methods or you can use a calculator. Written methods, when you're using those, break the question down into percentages you know. So, for instance, 10%, 25%, 50%, and then build it back up to find the percentage in the question. And then if you can use a calculator, use the multiplier method. So that means convert the percentage to a decimal by dividing by 100 and then multiply the amount by the percentage. I hope this helps. If you need any support, get in touch. Thank you.